All right, everyone, welcome. As a senior ethics consultant, I'm here to brief you on one of the toughest questions in our field. And it's this: why do good people, well-intentioned people like you and me, sometimes make really bad ethical calls? You might be surprised to hear that the answer often has very little to do with character and everything to do with the environment around us, with subtle triggers that can push anyone off course. So, how does that happen? Let's dive in.
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at what I call the good person paradox. Then, we'll break down what a moral attitude is actually made of. After that, we'll get to the real heart of the matter, how the way a situation is framed can corrupt our judgment, why we're so drawn to immediate rewards, and we'll wrap up with a practical toolkit you can start using right away.
Let's start with this fundamental conflict, this gap between who we think we are, as moral, decent people, and what we sometimes end up doing, especially when the pressure's on.
Think about this number for a second. Research shows that a whopping 92% of Americans are satisfied with their own moral character. And it gets better. Most of us don't just think we're ethical, we're pretty convinced we're more ethical than the person sitting next to us. We see ourselves on a kind of moral high ground. So that brings us to the big blinking question, right? If nearly all of us are so sure we're the good guys, why do studies consistently find that tons of employees witness misconduct at work? The answer isn't that 92% of us are liars. It's that our character, as important as it is, isn't the only thing in the driver's seat. The situation, the context, that can often be a much more powerful force.
So how can a situation just bypass our good intentions like that? Well, it starts with understanding that our ethical stance, our attitude, isn't just one solid wall. It's more like a system with three distinct parts, and here's the kicker: each one of those parts can be messed with.
At its most basic, an attitude is just a state of mental readiness. It's not something you're born with, you learn it. It's like the internal programming that prepares you to judge something as good or bad, right or wrong, and it shapes what you're probably going to do about it.
And this slide lays it out perfectly, the three faces of our attitude. First up, you've got the cognitive component. That's your head, your thoughts, your beliefs. For example, I believe animal testing is just wrong. Then comes the affective piece. That's your heart or your gut, the emotions tied to that belief, like feeling real compassion for those animals. And finally, those two lead to the behavioral component, your intention to actually do something, like deciding, okay, from now on I'm only buying cruelty-free. When all three of those are lined up, our ethical stance is rock solid. The trouble starts when something comes along and knocks them out of sync.
And that brings us right to the main event, the outside forces that knock us off balance. And you know what? A lot of the time, it's something as simple as the words we use. The way a situation is framed can completely hijack our ethical decision-making.
This one sentence, this is probably one of the most infamous examples of ethical reframing in modern history. It was said to the engineers at NASA right before the Challenger disaster in 1986. They were raising serious safety concerns about the O-rings, but this little phrase just completely changed the nature of the problem they were being asked to solve. And you can see the incredible shift right here. With their engineer hats on, what was their core concern? Safety, period. The data about the faulty O-rings was the most important thing. The reward, the reinforcer, was a safe flight. But the second they put on their manager hats, the whole game changed. The core concern became the schedule and the budget, the launch deadline became the loudest signal in the room, and the reward, avoiding a financial hit and a PR nightmare. The facts didn't change at all, but the frame changed everything. Now, in behavioral science, we have a term for this. It's called a motivating operation. Don't let the jargon throw you. All it means is that something in the environment, in this case just a few words, can change what you find valuable in a specific moment. That frame made the reward for launching on time feel way more powerful than the reward for being cautious. All of a sudden, safety wasn't the biggest motivator anymore.
Okay, so why is reframing so dangerously effective? Why are we so tempted by these unethical shortcuts? Well, the answer is buried deep in our psychology. Our brains are hardwired to prefer what's right in front of our noses.
Here it is. This is the secret. The reward for the unethical choice is almost always immediate, tangible, and certain. For those Challenger engineers, launching on time meant instant relief from pressure from their bosses. But the reward for the ethical choice, delaying the launch, that was abstract. It was delayed. It was the absence of a future disaster. And our brains, well, they're just built to go for the sure thing, the immediate win, over the fuzzy, far-off one every single time. And this is the chain reaction, the dominoes falling. It starts with a simple redescription of the situation, the frame. That frame alters what motivates us. That shift makes an immediate, often unethical reward seem way more appealing than our long-term ethical standards. And that powerful lure, that leads directly to the bad decision. A simple turn of phrase can light the fuse on a total disaster.
All right, that's the theory. Now let's get to the most important part of this whole briefing. What can you, as an ethics practitioner, actually do about it? Your job is to become a master at spotting these frames and helping build environments that can resist them. So let's open up the toolkit.
First, and most importantly, listen to the language. Is somebody calling it aggressive accounting when what they really mean is fraud? Second, learn to anticipate the classic excuses. Everybody's doing it, it's just this one time. Don't let the small stuff slide, because it never stays small. You have to be the one to constantly remind people of the ethical frame. And here's a huge one. Create systems that actually reward people for doing the right thing, not just for being fast. And finally, always remember that people are most vulnerable to this stuff when they're tired, stressed, and under a deadline.
So I'll leave you with this question to take back with you. Start listening. I mean really listening. What frames are being used in your organization? Are decisions being shaped around quarterly profits, or are they being shaped around long-term integrity? Is the goal to crush a competitor or to serve a customer? Finding the frame is the first, and I promise you, the most powerful step you can take toward making sure that good people are empowered to make good choices. Thank you.